So hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Deep Dive with Tiffany and myself, Stephen. So Tiff, are you a dialect speaker? Do you speak any?
I do actually. So I'm Hokkien,
Okay.
and I grew up with my grandmother who only spoke Hokkien. So that's how I picked up the dialect.
Okay, so you're fluent in it.
I wouldn't say I'm fluent.
Okay. I'm Hokkien too, but I know just enough to order my mee pok, and
Survivor skills.
Yeah. Just the
okay.
essentials. So when I speak dialects nowadays, they call it dialect.
Oh, okay.
It's a variation of that.
All right.
Okay, anyhow, over time, we've had one film that has been making the news, sparking a much larger conversation about dialects in Singapore. The film Dear You, that's what it's called, was released in a Mandarin dubbed, while the original Teochew version was limited to selected screenings. And a bit of public outcry there saying, why not see it in its original splendor in Teochew?
Yeah, and actually since then, IMDA has approved more Teochew screenings of Dear You, and the authorities have said they're actually reviewing guidelines on dialect use in films. But I think today we want to ask, in an increasingly modern English-speaking Singapore, what purpose do dialects serve these days? And also, are they living languages that meet real needs, or have they just become symbols of cultural identity?
To help us unpack this issue, we have with us today Luke Liu, Assistant Professor in Linguistics and Multilingual Studies at NTU.
Hello.
And also Ong Yi Ting, a 24-year-old local content creator known for her Hokkien TikTok videos.
Hi everyone, Dakiho. My name is Yi Ting.
I think before we start, let's give people a bit of context. So for those who don't know, Chinese dialects are not permitted on free-to-air television and radio, with some exceptions provided in recent years. Movie releases in general are required to be dubbed in Mandarin, and which is, I wanted to set the scene before we get straight into it. Let's begin with the film itself, Dear You. So the initial 4,800 tickets for the Teochew version was quickly sold out. And then there were calls for more dialect screenings. I mean, Luke, I want to start with you. Were you surprised by the response, people calling for more of that Teochew version?
I don't think I was necessarily surprised. I mean, nowadays people are quite used to being able to access, movies in any language that they like, right? So people are used to streaming services, even songs on Spotify, stuff like that, right? So in terms of the cinema, right? So it seems a bit strange to them, and maybe a bit regressive, that they want to watch something in its original language and they can't, right? So that's one issue. And secondly, of course, we also know that people are quite aware of how things have changed, right? Since the 1970s and 1980s in terms of dialect speaking and in terms of the use of Mandarin. And they're well aware that circumstances have moved long time ago. So they're a bit, frustrated, right? In terms of why they can't still
And just to help people further understand, because Singapore's position on dialects is something that was intentional. I mean, we had a Speak Mandarin campaign that was launched in 1979, where Mandarin was promoted as the common language. So they sort of said, let's stop using dialects, let's all switch to Mandarin. The idea was to improve communication, support bilingualism, and also strengthen social cohesion, because it means we spoke a common language, right?
Yes.
But now I guess the question is, we're saying we've done it so well that the dialects are kind of almost phased out. So maybe it's time to just change the laws a bit and
loosen it.
Be a bit more chill. Let any language, because what's the big deal, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's bring Yi Ting into the conversation because, Yi Ting, you are known as that Hokkien girl. You make Hokkien content online. Let's talk a little bit about how you started on this journey.
I think I uploaded my very first TikTok video back then. TikTok wasn't really a big thing. So I uploaded one video of me and my grandmother conversing in Hokkien. And then I went to bed. I think it was like 3 to 4 a.m. And then the next morning I woke up. I just blew up online. And the comments were all like, oh, youngsters still can speak Hokkien nowadays. Or like, oh, I never knew Gen Zs could speak Hokkien. And then that was when I realized I kind of had like a superpower, because growing up it was very natural to me. Yeah, and I think I picked up Hokkien because when I was about 3 to 6 years old, like people would be going to nursery, kindergarten.
Okay.
But I barely went to those schools because I was moving houses a lot. So I was always at home. listening to my parents and my grandparents' conversations, and then they would play Hokkien songs. They would consume media from Taiwan online, not those on TV, because those on TV are also dubbed in Mandarin as well.
That's true.
So I think when I was like a kid, I was like a little sponge, so whatever I absorbed was all dialects and Mandarin.
So speaking Hokkien for you was quite natural because it was something you did at home.
That's right.
And I guess you carried on to use it to converse with your grandmother.
The older generation. I mean, I only learned because I realized my parents were speaking in a third language and they were talking about us.
They don't want to let the kids know what they're
It
saying.
was their secret language.
Like they would code switch whenever they want to talk.
Correct. So I knew if I outrightly asked them, what did you mean? They would not tell me. So I would pick out like certain words and I'll be like, so what does this word mean? And then eventually I pieced in my head that they were just talking bad about us.
So the question now is, with dialects being almost non-existent in a country like Singapore, why has there been this recent uproar for people saying, I really want to have the show back in its original, Hokkien language? Why is it such a big deal? Teochew, yeah. But it could have been in Hokkien. I mean, it could have been in any dialect. But the question is, why are we now clamoring for this,
I think we need to, first of all, understand like the situation of these Chinese dialects, right? So Hokkien, Teochew, Cantonese even. So these are the major Chinese dialects that are still spoken in Singapore. So one way to characterize it is that we have different levels of endangerment, right? So for these languages, I would say that we are between severely endangered and critically endangered. So that's like 1.5 steps away from extinction. Okay. So we no longer have intergenerational transmission. So parents no longer use these languages with their children. So if the current trend continues in terms of demographics and so on, I would say that in 20, 30 years, nobody will be speaking these languages anymore.
Wow, 20,
right?
30
So
years.
that's one thing.
Yeah, but then I'll ask you, so what? Because if no one's using it, I mean, have we really lost anything? Because we are still all communicating with each other effectively.
Right. Exactly, which is why there's this reaction, I suppose, that people want to be able to reconnect somehow with these languages that they know that their grandparents or parents used to speak. And of course, I mean, part of the reaction is also from the older generation themselves, who used to live through those days when they could, access media in these languages. So personally, I mean, it feels a bit cruel that they can't do this still in this day and age, given that we know that, these dialects are no longer a threat to Mandarin. We know that these languages are literally dying.
I can understand why people want to watch it in its natural language, or I mean, in what it was shot at as. But because the screen that I went to, it was full house and it was filled with seniors.
Right.
So I mean, a couple of them needed toilet breaks in between. But
they used to have intermissions in the movies.
They used to, but not now.
Last time,
yeah. And I think it goes back a little bit to do with the fact that, I mean, already cinema movie viewing in cinemas are a little bit of a dying trade. I mean, some people will say, it is like nobody goes there. And then for these old people to then come out and to be able to watch it, I think that it was some form of them wanting to reconnect with a language that they are familiar, or even some of them are not familiar with. So my parents went to watch it and they said half of the conversation they didn't quite get it, but they felt, there was the feels. Yeah, there was the feels.
I guess part of it is also you want to watch something as is in its authentic language, So when it's dubbed, it's not the same. I mean, even when we watch shows on Netflix and you dub it to the English version, it doesn't quite feel the same.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
So I guess do we lose? I guess is some of it literally lost in translation when you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when we talk about, we know that for languages, right? So when we translate one language to another, we lose certain cultural nuances. So there's no equivalent translation for certain words. For example, I mean, in Singlish, shiok, right? So this idea of shiok, you can't really translate it into English. So that's one. And second, in terms of the actor's original performance, right? The tone, certain expressions, and so on. You would definitely lose those things when you translate or you dub it over through another language, right? So these are the two key things. And of course, in the context of the movie itself, certain scenes and certain lines, if delivered in a completely different language, might have a very different social connotation.
When you are making your videos eating online, do you, purposely think to yourself, okay, this I have to, say it in Hokkien as opposed to doing it in English or Mandarin because the nuance is different? Do you actually make a clear distinction?
Yeah, I think because people are so used to seeing me as the Hokkien girl, to be honest, if I were to make my videos in Mandarin or English, they'll be like, hey, can you speak Hokkien? Okay, I want to hear you speak in Hokkien. But I do spend a lot of time editing my videos because I need to add in both English or Chinese subtitles. Yeah, because I do feel like nowadays the viewers on my platform, they are ranging from Gen Alpha all the way up to people in their 50s. So I need to account for the fact that the younger generation really don't understand this language at all. It's just like me trying to watch a Korean film that I wouldn't understand a single thing. Yeah, but I think recently a lot of comments that I got under my videos is that they're asking, why is it that we can learn third languages like Korean, Spanish, Japanese in schools? We can watch these other languages on Netflix, but we can't watch our own dialect language online, or not online, but mostly on our traditional mainstream media, as well as learn it in school.
To be fair, learning the languages, when you learn French, for instance, you're learning the official French language, not the French dialects. I mean, French has dialects, Japanese even has dialects, So I think we are learning still the official language. But yeah, the question now being that why can't we just chill a bit more and maybe treat it as a foreign language film and just leave it in its original language?
When the government says things like it's reviewing the framework, what do you think it needs to review?
From a sociolinguistic perspective, right? So in terms of reviewing the framework and hopefully changing the policy. So, I mean, it's not just about cinema and movies, right? It's also about mainstream TV and radio stations. So we have a certain situation now where, K-pop is actually permissible, right? On Chinese radio stations, but not Cantonese songs, but not Hokkien songs and so on, which is a bit strange.
Is there any danger of influencing young ones and adulterating the Mandarin?
Oh no, I mean Mandarin and these other languages. I mean, okay, from a linguistic perspective, these are mutually unintelligible languages. So in terms of similarity, it's actually very low.
Okay.
Right? Which means that they don't necessarily interfere in terms of how people actually learn Mandarin. In fact, the main language now that interferes with Mandarin is English.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that if I learn dialect, it's not going to affect my grasp over the Mandarin language.
No, it's not.
The
It's
Chinese
not.
language.
I mean, it's not. I mean, in fact, it could help. It could facilitate because in terms of the script, right? So it shares a certain script. You might, in terms of cultural similarities and of certain expressions and so on, it might help you better engage with Mandarin as well. But in terms of pronunciation and so on, it's actually they share very little similarities.
Because I guess we're also formally learning Mandarin in schools for a number of years, whereas you're saying just let the dialects come about every now and then. We're not saying in primary school, you will now learn Hokkien. You will now learn Cantonese.
Yeah, I think there's also a difference between the dialect that we speak at home and and whether we can learn it in school, right? Because I mean, Yi Ting, would you consider yourself effectively? I don't know what's the word. I won't even call
Trilingual,
it
bilingual.
Trilingual. Yeah, effectively. Will you be able to do your Hokkien fluently?
I would say if you want me to speak and write in Hokkien, honestly, I don't know what is the correct writing system to follow as well.
Okay.
So I heard that there are writing systems for Cantonese, Teochew, and Hokkien, but honestly, we don't have enough people who are proficient in that to even teach this language in the first place.
But
so
speaking?
Speaking is really through, learning from the older generation.
Can
But
you read the news, for example?
Yeah. If I were to
Formal
give you a
forms
new
of-
script.
With
domain.
practice, yes, but if you were to give me the script and want me to deliver on the spot, right, it's no way I can do that.
I
Yeah.
see.
And would the older generation, like the people who taught you the dialect, would they be able to do
yes,
that?
there will be some people who can do that. So, for instance, recently, I received 8 episodes for a Hokkien drama. So
Yeah.
I looked through my script. Right, I needed to take weeks. I needed weeks actually to sit down and translate it into Hokkien. Yeah.
Okay, so there is still a difference between how the one that you converse and if you are doing it, properly.
Yeah, because you never grew up learning Hokkien per se, right? It was just something you
Here.
hear and you learn by ear, so to speak.
That's right.
Yeah.
And interestingly, for every phrase in Hokkien, for example, fruit, some people will say ge ji, some will say gui ji, some will say jui go. There are so many variations to it
Are
because
they the same kind
in
of
the
fruit
same
or different
dialect.
the same kind of fruit.
They're just
Wow.
fruits.
Just
No, the
generic
word
fruit.
fruits.
Yeah, it's
They're
a
just
generic
Fruits
fruit.
in
Yeah.
3 different ways.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because in Mandarin there is a phrase called 三里不同调十里不同音, which kind of means every step you take, in the olden village, right? Every step you take, every few steps you take, the intonation changes. And then afterwards the tone of the language, everything changes. But because there's no proper writing system to lock everything down.
And I guess some people are also saying that if we lose these dialects, are we losing a part of our culture? is that part of the cultural heritage lost and gone forever?
The variation or the version of Hokkien and Teochew, for example, that's spoken in Malaysia and Singapore, it's actually unique to our region.
Oh.
So we are talking here about, lots of language mixing between Malay, right, and Tamil as well. So some of these words originally were actually Malay words that we have, come to see as part of Hokkien vocabulary. So stuff like loti, subbrain.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I also think to myself, we have this restriction on, our free-to-air television and, most of our radio time belts, right? But a lot of the content that we are receiving these days or, we're consuming these days are online.
That's
like
right.
the stuff that you make eating. So does a policy like this whole, make sure dialects are not in the, your mainstream media, does that really hold water anymore when everything is available online?
So when my video first blew up, I remember there was just one comment. Someone commented, if Lee Kuan Yew were to watch your video, he would be rolling in his grave right now.
Wow.
Yeah. But I don't think that, given the context back then in the 1970s, right, the Speak Mandarin campaign was necessary, right? It was very hard to get people to understand one another if there isn't like a common language spoken. But I guess as time goes, with the new context where the current generation, the Gen Alphas and Gen Zs can't even speak Mandarin, I do think that it's time to review this policy, because as much as we can continue to in a way suppress this on traditional media, there's a group of people, if I were to observe from my comments section over 5 to 6 years, right, a lot of young people are reaching out to me and say, hey, can you make more videos where you actually teach Hokkien, because I really want to converse with my grandma. I really want to be able to understand them, to speak to them, and I just say, I'm so sorry, my Hokkien is also not that good.
Yeah.
But I try my best to add subtitles to teach in my videos. But there is a demand, there is a desire to pick up this language, and also among the older generation who are saying that, hey, please make more videos so we can continue to hear this language since we don't hear it anywhere else anymore.
Yeah, so how much of it is truly wanting to learn so they can communicate to an older generation that will soon be moving on? And how much of it is exotic, the novelty factor? Like they want to get more of this content because it's entertaining for them rather than that they are learning something from you.
Yes, because I like to, converse with my viewers as I know, be it to reply to their DMs or just reply to their comments. Some of them will say, because of you, I want to learn Hokkien because you make it sound so nice. And I guess because I made the consistent effort to not use vulgarities in my videos as well. I think most of the Singaporeans would use the vulgarities would be the first few phrases that they pick up.
That's right.
Yes.
And I guess it's the same across all languages. When we watch K-drama, sometimes we pick up the funnier words first.
Yes.
Yeah, but then from there, then they realize that, actually, dialect is something that they live and breathe every day. That's when they gain the awareness that, for instance, your Hokkien Mee, or when you walk past like Amoy Street, Upper Hokkien Street, like all these are traces of our dialects. Yeah, and that's when they start to click and realize that, these are all part of Singapore's history. Even Singlish is heavily influenced by Hokkien. Then, I guess it does pique the interest of the younger generation. But whether do we have enough and do we have proper facilities for them to pick up the language, that would be another thing.
But I wonder also if dialects can be economically unnecessary but culturally necessary. Like we need to preserve it even if it doesn't help us as a country. I mean, is there a case to be made for that?
But some would argue it's such a small portion of the population, such a small number that it doesn't matter.
But we are entering aging population though, so I do think that there's a lot of people who actually need this language, because nowadays a lot of correspondence are mostly in Mandarin and English, or like our 4 official languages. To be honest, right, when government come to me for campaigns, right, they're always asking me to translate all this into Hokkien. Yeah, and there is a need for this. I do feel like we are always asking our elderlies to like, hey, keep up with technology, be more tech savvy, be careful of this scam, that scam. But are we speaking in the language that they're understanding?
Yeah,
we are
that's
not.
true.
That's why they don't get
at the same time, it's a diminishing
Yep.
problem in a way, right? So as we mentioned, right, if once the elderly people are no longer with us, then it ceases to be a problem. So I guess the bigger question is, what do Singaporeans really value in terms of cultural heritage and ways of life? If the emphasis is always on economic development, always on making money and profit, then where do we see ourselves in terms of who we are, right? And where we came from, the ways of life, the food that we used to eat, and so on, right? So as we also mentioned previously, so for the young people today, I mean, dialects are something that they have not lost because they've never spoken them.
Right.
Right. To them, there's no sense of loss.
You haven't.
So there's no feeling of loss in that sense, right? So even for myself, so I can only speak Teochew in extremely limited ways. I can count 1 to 10.
Yep.
I can say bye-bye. I can say eat rice. So basically dinner table kinds of conversation with my grandparents. But beyond that, I can't, right? And if you ask me do I feel a sense of loss, right, in terms of Teochew and so on, I can't say I do feel a sense of loss because I've never had it. I can't transmit it to my own son, right? To him, Teochew is completely irrelevant, right? To him and his social circle when he grows up and so on. And this is going to be the reality for most Singaporeans in 20 years' time.
So I guess what you guys are also suggesting is that now that we give people the option, not just say that you have to speak Mandarin, but allow for these other dialects to be in our society, in our daily lives, where people can use it freely, enjoy movies about it. Because anyway, at this point, the numbers are so small that there is no way it's going to diminish or change the fact that we've learned formal Mandarin already, right?
Yeah. So why not, I guess, just loosen the guidelines.
Yeah, just lend a bit more color to our lives,
Yeah. And I feel quite sad when, you guys were talking about the fact that this is going to die out in the next 20 to 30 years. Because honestly, I would like to teach my kids, even if not to be fluent in it, but to be able to, do a smattering of my dialect. Yi Ting, if you one day have your own children, would you want to teach them Hokkien?
Oh, I would definitely do it. I do feel like learning and knowing your dialect is a superpower. It's like, when you go to the market, you engage in conversations with auntie and uncles, you will naturally become their goddaughter or godson.
You break the barrier very
That's
quickly,
right? And I think although people say that there's no commercial value to it, I would say throughout my years of studying, throughout my years of internships and working, being in the media industry, I really gained so many express passes because I know dialect. When people realize, oh, you're also Hokkien, I'm gonna take better care of you, things like that. And I do see from my comment section people say that, I know we still have people like Hokkien Hui Kwan, organizations like that who actually do take care of the next gen who wants to start something of their own. Like there's always these connections or what we call sneaky links here and there, right? Like it does help, value add to whatever you're working on.
But a lot of these dialect associations are also finding it very hard to recruit new blood.
That's right.
So I mean, I know a few people who are in these associations, and every year they do a call out, and they maybe might get 1 or 2 young people. I mean, and when I say young, it's about 40s. I think the real need here, for these languages to still stay is to be able to communicate with an older generation. But when that generation pass, maybe this dialect will be, some form of a symbol of heritage. That's it, a connection.
Plus, I do feel like knowing our own dialect also kind of grounds us morally in terms of family values and maybe in terms of culture, because I feel like we're living in a world where we're so susceptible to global ideas, right? I do think that knowing our own dialects, it means that we are more connected to our family as well. And with that, right, it kind of gives us a greater confidence to engage in global ideas that is coming in all directions. Because I think nowadays, if you were to go up to a Singaporean and ask them, oh, hey, what does it mean to be a Singaporean? A lot of youngsters can't give you an answer.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe
if you ask them in Hokkien, hey, hobo, how are you? then they can reply, wow, jin ho ah.
Wei pai. It took so long to get there. I could see the loading sign on the side.
He's trying.
He's trying. Yeah.
So, dialects, we're talking about this, and in Singapore, we've had dialects are a bit foreign to hear nowadays. What are your thoughts about it? Do you miss it? Do you wish we had more of it? And should we be a bit more chill about it overall in this day and age? Drop us your notes and let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. But otherwise, that's it for this week's Deep Dive. Bye for now.
See you.